Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for another soul-driven interview. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Lynley Welte, a certified PRO EFT practitioner and empowerment coach. Welcome to the show, Lynley.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a hiccup in the very beginning of hitting that record button. It's been like 2 months for me almost since I've recorded an interview. So I'm getting back in the hang of it.
Back in the saddle again.
Back in the saddle again. All right, folks. I'm very excited to introduce you to Lynley. Her and I met, last fall, I think, or maybe even late summer.
I think it was late summer sometime, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Late summer. We are both veteran B schoolers with Marie Forleo, who is a fellow Sagittarius sister. And Lynley is also a Sagittarius.
Wow, I did not know this about her.
Yes, of course. That's why she's so fabulous.
Yeah, of course. I should have known.
But Lynley and I met and we decided to start working together. We were doing some trade and I got to work with her doing some EFT and traded out some coaching and from my end. And we just had such a wonderful time. We kind of had an instant kind of sister connection. And so we have held each other up and made each other laugh for several months now.
Anna's become like my big sister, my big Sag sister. And she's just been such a blessing to have in my life.
Yes, so I'm very excited to introduce her to you today. And just an FYI before we jump in, first of all, you can watch this interview on YouTube. That link will be in the show notes. And Lynley has a special offer for our listeners today. So make sure you listen to the end of the show. All right, Lynley, ready? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do this.
Okay, first question I ask all of my interviewees. What makes you soul-driven?
Well, this is a good question, and forgive me if I get a little long-winded with it. So when you first asked me that question, I thought, oh, God, what does that mean? Like, what does it really mean to be soul-driven? So for me, that definition is a person who acknowledges and is guided by their heart and not by their mind. So this is a person that doesn't necessarily know that they're doing something. They just know that they're supposed to do it, as if they're being guided and driven by some kind of a force. And so I think a soul-driven person is not one who lives necessarily for joy and satisfaction of worldly pleasures, but they seek a greater knowing and understanding of who they are on this planet. It's like there's that soul purpose that they're given. And I think it's, it's like, it's knowing that they have this physical form, this physical body, but also asking themselves the question, like, who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? And wanting to know more about their existence here. So as I began to think about and like, okay, well, how do I play into that role for myself? I like to think of myself as being like a small drop of water in a vast ocean who's trying to get back to that ocean to discover herself, who she is as a soul. And for me, I live my life from that place of not, like I said, like not from my own personal desires, but what is that purpose, that underlying purpose of who I am, why I came here to be that, and how do I get back to my true essence. So I make it a daily practice of mine to reconnect with that, not just from the physical body, but to connect on a more spiritual level, to discover what that is that's within me, that is greater, that's greater outside of me, but also that is greater within me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I like it.
Good.
Well, I think that when you're living from the soul, or when you're trying to reconnect with soul, it's definitely not anything material or even of this world necessarily. It's on such a higher plane. And of course, it reconnects to this world and it reconnects to the everyday. But in the midst of trying to connect with our soul, I feel like that's where the journey is, right?
Absolutely. And it's a bold journey too. It's really a journey of saying, okay, I have to let go of all the things that I know or
Yeah.
that I can see, because I know that within me there is something greater than this physical presence. And
Yeah.
we have that. I think we all have that yearning. We all have that desire. We all have that soul driven purpose, but not everybody is connected to that or understand, exactly what that is.
Well, I think it's a really courageous undertaking as well that most people kind of bypass because it's hard. It's painful. It's also like, jumping off a cliff into the unknown. There's no books necessarily, or like we're just starting to get into that time period of our existence on this planet within, well, this part of human history anyway, where people are starting to talk about these things more. But you can't go to the library and like check out a book on like how to wake up, or how to become aware. You can find some articles maybe, but I mean, it's just like, and it's so different for everyone. It's such a personal journey. So again, a book can say this or an article could say this, but what are you experiencing? It's just so different.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be different for every person. And I think that's where it's interesting, is it is going to be different for every person. But I think like, the end result is still the same. It's like the experience. Does that make sense? Where it's like, you're still kind of going in the same direction with the same end goal. And that end goal is to reconnect with the higher self, the higher understanding. But the pathway to do that and the package that it comes in is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah, it's the underlining flow of things. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into some questions and get to know Miss Lynley. I always like to start with the backstory. Would you share with us where you are from and a bit about your childhood?
Sure. So I am a desert rat, born and raised in the desert of Southern California. No, it's not Palm Springs, a little further north of there in a little town called Apple Valley. Some of you might know Barstow, kind of around that same area. Grew up there, lived there for 17 years. And as soon as I could, I was like, peace, I'm out of here. Desert is not for me. And I've only been back twice. No, I think 3 times. And I've just I think I've closed that door. I've got a few friends out there, but that was just...
Not a big desert person?
I can appreciate it, but I don't really ever want to live there again. I'm currently living in Oregon, and I'm definitely more into the lush green beauty, except I would love to take my winters and go back to Hawaii. That's my dream.
So you grew up when did you move away from the desert? Like when you were done with high school?
Yeah, I left as soon as I was done with high school, and then I went and studied abroad for a year. I graduated when I was 17, so
smart lady.
I was like, well, I really am not feeling the university thing right now. Maybe I will when I come back, but I want to travel. So I studied abroad, spent the year in Austria, learned German, And then came back home after that year, was still not really sure what I wanted to do. And I had a grandmother who had a condominium in Hawaii that she didn't live in. And my sister and I said, "You want to go? Let's do it." So
Heck
we
yeah.
packed up our bags and we asked grandma, and we said, "Hey, can we come live in your condo?" And she said, "Yeah, absolutely. Except for 2 weeks out of the year when I want to come visit. Then you guys need to live somewhere else." And we said, "No problem. We'll camp out on the beach if we need to." So I ended up spending 3 years there that time around.
Wow. We're at in Hawaii?
On Maui.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's still home. My heart, I think, will forever be in Maui. And like I say, my dream and my goal is one day to be able to manifest some sort of way that I can spend 3-4 months out of the year in the winter months when it's cold and rainy and dreary here to go live there and reconnect. I mean, that's where my spirit was just the most open, the most receptive, and by far the happiest that I have ever been living on the islands.
I've heard incredible things about Maui. I have yet to go to Hawaii.
It's phenomenal. If I ever get my 3-month home, you are got a ticket there.
I will come stay for sure. So you met your husband in Hawaii, correct?
We did.
Is
yes.
this the next step in the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So my husband and I, kind of ironic story, we met on the dance floor. So we were both into ecstatic dancing, and there is this dance class called Five Rhythms at the Studio Maui, which unfortunately, as far as I know, doesn't exist anymore. It's a huge yoga studio. And they had this ecstatic dancing where there was like 50, 60 people who were just coming together and just dancing for the heck of dancing. No choreography, just free form, flowing, expressive dancing. And I will have to say, was a little hot shot on the floor. Like, he was jumping and spinning and, definitely showing himself off. I was like, wow, who is this guy? And so ironically, I was with another friend of mine and we were just about to leave. And I said, "You know what? I have to go talk to this person." And so I went back into the studio and he had all these people around him talking to him. And I like just kind of waited in the background and was like, because we had, just to back up a little bit, like we had several exchanges on the dance floor. Like we never actually talked, we never touched, but it was just like these fun little, like two little hummingbirds dancing together. And so I went back and just waited my turn in line as he had like this group of people around him. And I was a part of some sort of MLM at the time. So I had my like little business card. It was like, "I have to run, but here's my number. Call me." And then he called me several times before I ever actually answered the phone. So I was like, do I want to talk to this person or not? And then, just the rest is history. We got together, we just talked and connected right away. I was very intrigued by his spiritual practice, by his lifestyle. It was very similar to mine. And I was just like, wow, I didn't know that I'd ever meet a person like this before. And 12 years later, we're still together.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm like lost in my head thinking like dance floor, spirituality. I would have been completely hooked. Like, okay, you can take me wherever you'd like to.
Exactly.
Which is, I guess, what happened, right?
Yeah,
so
pretty
then we
much.
Went to where did you go next?
Okay, so next was, he had a home in Washington, in the rainiest place of all, on I think the rainiest year in forever, that he wanted to go back to. Off the grid, tiny, it was a little ferro cement yurt that he had built. Off the grid, not totally in the middle of nowhere, but pretty secluded, that he's like, I really want to go back to. I miss my place. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. I'm just going to go along because I am interested in adventure right now, and I'm going to say yes to everything. So we went and we ended up living there for 6 months. Wasn't exactly my lifestyle. I'm a social person. I like people and living in a secluded place all by myself. And it was just helped me really get clear about how I want to live, at least being, a young 20-year-old who's still in that exploration phase of life. So we lived there, and then we ended up moving. I basically told him I can't do this anymore. And then we ended up living in Bainbridge Island for a while. Things didn't work out there very well either. And then we found out we both have a spiritual teacher, and we found out that our spiritual teacher was coming to the US for the first time in, I think, like 2.5 years. And I had never actually met this person before. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is going to be a really good opportunity for us to go. And so we went and saw him, and I felt very, very connected to the retreat center that we went to visit. And I told my husband, I said, hey, I need to go. There's something there. There's something about this place that is really, it speaks to me, but I need to be able to go there when there aren't 800 people there. Like, I need to experience this place on a normal, just day-to-day basis, because there's a lot of power here. So I decided to do a 40-day retreat, and my retreat, for various assorted reasons, only ended up being 2 weeks, and ended up leaving like, I want more of this place. This is the only place that I felt accepted, where I felt loved, where I felt that I could be the full expression of myself. And so I told my husband, I said, hey, I want more of this place, and I can see myself living there. And I think for him, he was secretly like, yes, finally, because he had wanted to live there for years. And so by me saying that, he was just delighted.
And this is a meditation retreat.
This is a meditation retreat center. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I left that detail out. The minor details, right?
Minor detail. So you ended up spending like 4 or 5 years all together at this meditation retreat.
Yeah.
Correct?
So we lived there. The first time we lived there for 1.5 years. We left, moved back to Hawaii, then moved back to Washington, then moved back to the retreat center. We've been in this triangle for a little while. So yeah, altogether is 5 years.
Okay. And where did EFT come into play? And actually, what we should do first is talk about what EFT is, so that
everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'm like, let's just jump in. Then I'm like, oh, wait.
People don't know what we're talking about. Yeah. So EFT, my favorite way to explain EFT is the way that Nick Ortner describes it. He's another, you could call him a tapping guru. It's a combination between acupressure and modern psychology. And so we're working with the meridian points in our body, and we tap on them while talking about certain emotional issues that we have, or physical pain, or any kind of imbalance that we have. We give that a voice so we can express it. And while tapping on it, we're sending calming signals to our brain, to the amygdala. And those, by doing that, it allows our body to come back to balance, basically. And so this is a tool that we can use for a multitude of different things. Like I said, it can be used for pain. It can be used for anxiety, stress. It can also be on the other perspective, where we can use it for empowerment and confidence building. It's a great tool for looking at our limiting beliefs. Any kind of, basically, it's like this magic manifestation tool and this magic change tool that has so many facets to it. to help ourselves and help us overcome whatever our challenges are.
And EFT stands for
Emotional freedom technique.
Okay.
My hesitation is on that. Because what I teach is a facet of EFT. Technically is very similar to EFT, but technically it is called progressive energy field technique. Very similar modalities, just a few different little nuances.
Interesting. And what is yours called again?
PRO EFT.
PRO EFT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is something that like because I've tapped with you before, obviously. Mm-hmm. You're tapping on like your what are these called?
So I always refer to it as our side of the eye. You can also refer to it as the temples.
Okay, the temples. That was the word I was going for.
Temples?
Yes.
Is that
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
Like
so the temples.
So we have we always start off tapping on the side of our hand. That's our first. There's a setup phrase that we begin with. And then we tap on the middle eye point, which is in between our eyebrows. And do you want me to go through the full points?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So these points that we're tapping on, they're actually meridian endpoints. And in my work, I like to tap on 10 of them. Other people will tap, different modalities will tap on different points. But I always start off side of the hand. And then we move to the middle eye point, which is in between the eyebrows. And then we move to the side of the eye, which is the outside of the eyebrows. And then we move under the eye, which is right on the cheekbone. And then under the mouth and nose at the same time. So under your nose, right in between the nose and the lip. And then the chin point is under your lip and above the chin. So in that little dimple point. And then we move to the collarbone. And the collarbone is that little sore spot it's not on the collarbone itself, but it's right underneath it, right next to the sternum. Like if you push on that, it's always usually pretty tender in people. And then we move under the arm, which is a little challenging to see because I'm wearing black. But
we both are.
Yeah, we both have our lovely matching turtlenecks today. Under the arm is about 4 inches down from the armpit, right about where the woman's bra strap sits. You can kind of see where I'm tapping here. And then the next point, I don't always do this on film, but for recording video, whatever we are doing today, we are tapping. I call it the rib point, and it's right under, just right here, basically right under the breast there. I'm just tapping right on the ribs. And then we have the wrist point, which is right across here on both wrists. So we do this is the most awkward one to show, like that. And then we go back to the top of the head. And for those of you who are listening on the audio, the wrist point it's basically right along your wrist lines. And I always tap with both fingertips on both hands.
Yeah.
And when you're tapping, you're basically just lightly tapping with your fingertips on whatever part of the body that you are working on. And then you just move through those points, repeating them in that pattern while talking about whatever the issue or the situation is that you're wanting to work on.
Yeah. So again, just a reminder for folks, you can jump on to YouTube to watch this via video if you would like. But okay, so now we know what EFT is. So you found EFT while you were in the meditation center, correct?
I found it beforehand.
Okay.
And honestly, I have racked my brain to try to figure out where exactly I first heard about EFT, and I do not remember. All I remember is every time that I heard EFT, it was like, oh, what's that? Oh, I want to learn about that. Oh, what is that? And so it was one of those things, like it kept showing up in my life. And it wasn't until it was I think it was the Tapping World Summit 2015 that I heard about it from somewhere, tuned into it, was hearing all these conversations and interviews and thought, that's it. That is for me. And I don't know how to find out about this, but I started doing some research and started looking at it. And at the same time, my husband and I were going through a very difficult time. And we were almost on the verge of a breakup. And I went and decided, okay, you know what, I want to see somebody. I need to talk to somebody myself privately and work some things out. Ended up being a tapping practitioner who also non-coincidentally, was also a part of my meditation practice. So she was totally like knew where I was coming from a spiritual background. And we ended up doing a lot of tapping together. And again, there was that confirmation of, wow, I had such a huge benefit from it and was able to release so many emotions and overcome so many things that I had suppressed in such a short amount of time with such an effective result that it actually ended up, it gave me the opportunity for the first time to be able to really express myself in my relationship, where I could say, hey, you know what, this is what I'm needing. And this is how I need support, where before I was never really able to do that before. So it really, my results from that just showed me that, you know, more people need this in the world. And I feel very, very drawn to this, and I need to go find out how to do this. So it was only, gosh, I think a matter of a few weeks that I had done some research, found a school, and they were like, yeah, you know, we start in about 3 weeks, so you can get signed up. And I was like, all right, sign me up. I'm there.
Meant to be.
It was meant to be. It's just like the timing was there, the resources were there, and everything just lined up really, really well.
So besides finding the, ability to kind of express yourself more in your relationship, can you share like one other thing that you healed with that EFT?
Yes. At the time I was also practicing massage therapy. And so with all the emotions that were coming up for me around my relationship and around my life at that time, and the stress of doing the massage, I have a small body. And admittedly, I wasn't taking proper care of my body at the time. And my husband and I were also building a tiny home during all of this. So I was starting to experience some severe physical pain in my wrists. And to the point where, you know, I was massaging a lot and then coming home and hammering a lot, or using power tools and different things that were requiring a lot of use in my hands. And the pain was just, you know, there are a few times where I couldn't go into work because I was just in so much pain. And I had to, you know, every night I was sinking my hands in ice because my wrists were hurting so bad. And as soon as I started tapping, it was amazing, the relief that I got. And I think I would have gotten more relief had I been more regimented about it. But it was by far, I think it was the thing that saved me, that helped me be able to go the next few months. And actually, no, it was a year. It was a year, because there was a certain point where I thought, you know, I don't know that I'm going to be able to do this for a month longer. And with the tapping, I was able to keep going and continue on for the next year.
Continue on, meaning
practice massage.
Okay.
Where there was a certain point where I was like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
And it shocked me how much longer I was able to keep going because of the tapping.
Well, that's got to be scary too. I mean, our hands are like, I've often thought about, you know, losing the ability to use my hands, or like, write, you know, like I'm a writer. So that's not one I want to lose if I got to give some up.
No, I hear you. I think I'd rather go feet first than hands if I had to make a choice.
Never been a fan of feet. Never been a fan. I don't like mine. My partner has like the most beautiful feet ever, and I still not touching them. Okay, so you found EFT, and then share with us kind of, because you didn't start working with clients immediately, right? Or you did, and then you kind of took a little break.
So I did. I had I think I had two clients, two official clients. I mean, I had tapped with a lot of people. A lot of my clients I would tap with, like a lot of my massage clients, I should say, we would extend our massage session and be like, hey, look, there's a super cool tool. We would tap together. They would get amazing results. Long story short, 4 months, I think it was 4 months after I graduated, my husband and I were getting ready to move to live nearby, near the retreat center. And I was in the process of starting an EFT practice. I was also in the process of working as a private contractor as a massage therapist. It was too much for me. I literally had basically a mental breakdown where I was like, this is just, I can't do this. I can't. It's too much. And part of that was based on this inner calling that I had that was saying, you got to go back to the center being the retreat center that I talked about earlier. And for months I had been ignoring it. I was like, no. And then finally it was like, yes, you have to go back there. And I didn't want to, because I was finally following my passion, what I thought I wanted to do. But there was this other driving force that was saying, no, you need more time at this center. And we had actually, so going back again, like we had actually built the tiny house to live at the center. Like that is what my husband wanted to do. But that was a part of me finding my voice, was saying like, no, I'm not ready to be there. Like, I'm not ready to go back. But turns out I was supposed to go. So I ended up listening to that, knowing that, okay, there's, for some reason I'm supposed to do this, and ended up spending the next 3.5 years there. So basically closed the door on everything that I had been doing, everything that I had been working on, knowing that I still had this tool that I could use. And I did definitely still use it there with some of the people that were there, and I used it on myself. But there's always this like sense of feeling like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this, but another part of me doesn't fully feel aligned being here.
Yeah. So what was it? Do you know what it was that pulled you back to the center? Like what your lesson was there?
For me, it was one, getting more grounded in my spiritual practice. Like really, I felt like I had been doing it a lot for other people because I was supposed to do it. I was supposed to have this spiritual practice. And I think it was really for me to develop my own foundation in my practice, but also as myself. Like, as I said before, the very first time when I went there, I felt myself. Like I felt myself come alive. And I needed to go back to that place. And so for me, my time there was about two things. One, getting that spiritual foundation and that spiritual grounding for myself, but also discovering myself in my authentic form. Like I've always been kind of a shy, introverted person. That's just my nature. And going there, it's kind of like I found myself, you could say. It's like I could be myself. I could be my silly, quirky nature and not really give a damn about what anybody else thought, because everybody there, we were all just a bunch of misfits that didn't really fit into the world. And we're like, oh my God, you're my people. I get to hang out with my people all the time. I get to eat with them. I get to meditate with them. I get to to work with them. Which it seems like a lot, but at the same time, I don't know why, but it works. There's not to say that we're perfect and not to say like we didn't have our issues, but there's still this just amazing sense of acceptance that I had never felt anywhere in the world. And so having that feeling, that acceptance helped me feel okay in myself to realize this is what it feels like to be yourself around other people, because I had never really known what that was. And for the first time in my life, I felt safe being me so that I could get comfortable enough to be me and then carry that out into the world like I'm doing now.
Yeah. And that's huge, huge,
Mm-hmm.
huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially as an entrepreneur, with your own business, if you don't know who you are and you aren't comfortable with yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I think that knowing ourselves is a lifelong journey because
I
we're
was
forever changing. So it's not
exactly.
like you get to a point you're like, I'm good. I know
And I
myself.
was just gonna say, like, I am by no means like have mastered that, but I have taken it to the next level.
It's so not possible. I was
Mm-mm.
just speaking with a hypnotherapist, and he was like, "Oh, you really sound like you know yourself." And I was like, "Well, I've been like geeking out and learning about myself since I was a kid, in a variety of different ways." And then later I was thinking, I was like, "Man, I should really know myself better by now." But I mean, like scientifically, I think it's every 7 years, like every cell within our
Mhm.
body
Mhm.
changes. And
Mhm.
so we're never gonna, no matter how much time we spend, we're never gonna fully know ourselves enough,
Totally.
and
And
that's
I
an
think,
exciting thing, I think.
well, it is because it means we always have an opportunity to learn, to discover and
To push
explore,
ourselves.
to push ourselves. You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, that's awesome that you got that there. I mean, that's huge. And I can see that because I feel like it's so important for all of us, and some of us more so, to be able to spend time in an encouraging environment, just an environment where we can be ourselves. I don't even fully understand what that would look like.
Mhm.
Because I didn't really like grow up in a family and experience that, much less out in
Yeah.
the world. So, you experience that in like tiny bubbles with maybe other people, but not as a whole. So when you left the center, I'm sure that was a huge change for you.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing because when I left the center, I didn't realize how challenging it was going to be to integrate back into the world. And I mean, it's still something that I deal with to this day. So we decided November, it was the end of November 2019 that my husband and I both decided, okay, we're going to leave. And so we actually left the center, I think it was January 9th, 2020. So here I was living in isolation. And I should say, one of the things the retreat center had is they had a cafe and bakery. So most of my time was actually spent working at the cafe and the bakery, but still I went from center to bakery, center to bakery. And that was great. It was fine. So it was still like, even though I got to interact with people, there's still like that sense of isolation because you have no idea what else is going out in the world. Like no Facebook, no computer, none of that. Just actually really nice and really refreshing. But then going from that to throwing yourself into the world, going out, like literally 2 days after I left, I got a job at a coffee shop. And it was like so was so not ready for it. I only stayed there for a month because I was like, this is not working.
So where did EFT come back into the mix?
EFT was in the back of my mind the whole time. So I basically left this under saying, I am going to start a business. I'm going to start my EFT practice. And by March of 2020, I'm going to be a successful EFT coach. I'm going to have a great practice. Everything is going to be wonderful. Even though I have no business experience at all, this is what I'm going to do.
In 2020.
In 2020, exactly. So I had obviously no idea what I was getting myself into.
It's hard enough to start a business in regular times. It would be hard enough to integrate back into typical society in regular times and put all of those things together in 2020.
In 2020. So I was like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm finally out in the world. I get to live life again. February happens and we're in shutdown. And I thought, are you kidding me? Like, why now? Of all the years, why now? So, I mean, it for me is really been a blessing in disguise, because I have met so many amazing people. You know, I did originally, I went out to get a real job. That real job didn't work out. I realized I'm a nature girl. I've got a friend of mine who needed help in her garden. So I was like, great, I'm gonna go work in her garden. And then at the same time, build my practice.
So you started building your EFT practice, what, a couple months after you got out, or like pretty much right away?
It was, I mean, you could say it was right away. A lot of that building, though, initially was me just reviewing.
Yeah.
You know, going back and studying the material and doing my building was really, do you want a free EFT session? Because I need to practice.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of freebies last year just to really get that back, build that confidence back. And it was great, you know, really, I didn't really need to do the freebies. Like, it was still there. I am so passionate about this work. Like, it's actually amazed me because a lot of things I can tend to like, okay, you know, forget, put that in the back burner, not gonna remember that. But this is one of those things that, like, it's just always stayed with me. Which is,
and that was how I met you, was when you were kind of, you know, wanting to do some more practicing.
You were one of my freebies.
So what type of it's not the right word necessarily, but like afflictions do you work on with folks? Like, what are some of the big ones that I bet 2020 offered all kinds of opportunities just in and of itself?
It did. I mean, there's a part of me that I wish I had a stronger foundation built because of that. You know, I just wasn't in that position to reach out in the way that I wanted to. But basically, you're just asking, like, what kind of things?
Yeah, well, I know, like, so on my end, the first time that we worked together, we did what was it called? It was like a tree.
So we did the tapping tree.
The tapping tree.
And the tapping tree is what I consider to be fun. A fun little tool that we can use where we take a deep dive into looking into a limiting belief that you have. And this could be one limiting belief, or it could be a group of limiting beliefs. And we go into an exploration to see, where did that come from? What are the roots behind it? What are the emotions that have been behind it? What are the feelings? And how do we get rid of that?
Yeah.
So we do that by creating a tree and figuring out, okay, well, here's this big tree in your life. How do we either transform the tree or cut the tree down? Not everybody likes to cut trees down. So we can transform them.
Yeah, we transformed mine. So Lynley and I, what I brought to her was a limiting belief around my body, right? Yep. Is that my body? Yeah.
I do believe
I have many limiting beliefs about my body. And it was really cool because we drew it out and then we filled it up with all kinds of limiting beliefs about my body, different things that had been said. And I was able to kind of tune in intuitively to see what this tree looked like. And then we would go through these rounds of tapping. And it was so fascinating because then I'd go to like tune back in. And for those who don't know, when you kind of tune in to your intuition, it's almost, you're kind of using your imagination as well as just seeing, you know, what is presented to you. So when I would tune back in after these like rounds of tapping, it was really cool because I would see the tree like changing and taking shape. And at first the tree was like ugly and gnarly and like, bleh. And it just, by the end of it, it was like this big, beautiful, gorgeous tree. I was really blown away because it's like that was like a 90-minute session, I believe. Yeah. I was blown away by how much relief and how much softening happened within like 90 minutes. What are some of the other things that you work on with folks?
So limiting beliefs, those are definitely a big foundation of mine, but I also work with just a normal day-to-day anxiety and stress and overwhelm. I like to do moving into doing more inner child work. So going down to the belief work, but figuring out what's the foundation of that. So helping people explore not just about like getting rid of that belief, but understanding where did this belief come from, and talking to that little child to say, hey, this is the story that you created when you were 5 years old, but this is actually what happened. And being able to do that, to go into that experience, that part of your life, and transform that is huge. I mean, it's
Inner child work is massive, massive.
It's some good stuff.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of work around that. Another one of the things I really enjoy doing is helping people attract what they want in their life. So this is where I love EFT, is that we all have things that we want or have things that we want to become, but we have these thoughts or these ideas or these things that we tell ourselves that prevent us from getting what it is that we want. So there's a really fun process that I take people through that helps them not only get clear about what it is that they're wanting, but figuring out all the reasons, all the blocks that are preventing them from getting that, and going through the process of getting rid of those things so that they can then be in a full mode of receptivity. It's basically like going from this saying like, okay, I want, this clenching, like I want with your fist closed, to being able to open your fist to a place of receiving and saying, okay, I'm ready to receive.
Yeah. Well, abundance is, it's all about flow and all about energy flow. Yep. And when we're like all tight and clenched up, then the energy is not flowing.
It is not happening.
I always like the perfect example, for myself. And I always share like with my clients or whomever I'm working with, it's like, when I was younger and I was waitressing, whenever I would go to work and I needed to make money, oh my gosh, freaking everyone would tip terribly, like it was just so frustrating, or it would be slow when it's usually slammed. And when I'd go to work and not care, oh my gosh, I'd make so much money. And it was just like, there's something going on here,
right?
Flow. It's so important.
And it's such a good example. I was having a conversation with somebody recently about saying, wanting something so bad, but saying yes to something that you think will bring you what you want, even though you don't feel aligned with it.
Yeah.
It's like attracting that client who doesn't work. You don't really want to work with them, but they're giving you a paycheck. So you say yes, knowing that, oh, I really don't want to work with that person. And, we were discussing this, and it was a challenge for them to see that, like, well, shouldn't you just say yes because you need the money? And yes,
Such a
that's
hard
true.
one.
But it is. It's so, and it's so hard for our minds.
Especially if you're like new and you need to make money and you've got
Yeah.
bills to pay. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, come on. Really?
I
Are you
know.
doing this to me? But when we say yes to less, then we're letting the universe know what we'll settle for. And so then it'll start bringing us more of that.
Exactly.
Is what we actually want.
It's kind of like, okay, I want a gold ring. And the universe says, oh, well, here's a silver one. And you're like, you could say, okay, well, I guess that'll work. But then you're never really happy with that. Or the universe gives you a silver ring and you're like, thank you. I appreciate that. Can you give it to somebody else? Because I know somebody over here who will really appreciate it. I don't think this is a really good example. I don't really like this example that I'm giving.
Yeah, well, it's just, I mean, I think it's a, you and I even spoke, like, or talked about, I think, in our like coaching back and forth, when we do that, exactly that, we get more of the things that we don't necessarily want. And so then we're like on this hamster wheel of like, oh my gosh, I have to pay my bills. But I'm not paying it doing the thing that I want, and then we can't really get off of it. And it's, it's so hard to have faith in the universe. And it's so hard to have faith that, like, things are going to come through and our bills are going to be paid, especially when we see no evidence of that whatsoever. And then we have on top of it, our fabulous American culture who's like, work, 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 and we're thinking like, like, okay, I need to be moving. I need to be doing things. I need to, in order to, and none of it's not true.
Right. Exactly. It's not. And I think we're getting there. Go ahead. I think I cut you off.
Very slowly. No, you're fine.
Okay.
So I know even with your EFT that you're also working with folks as an empowerment coach. What does that look like? What are some of the things that you like? What is an empowerment coach and how does that look?
So for me right now, one of my main focuses is working with women who, primarily introverted women, who feel like they have something they want to share with the world, or even not sharing something with the world, but they just want to find their voice. So these are women who were kind of like I was, in that position of wanting something, but not being able to say it, not being able to express them. And so with my coaching and with the EFT, we work to help them find that strength, find that place of, okay, first of all, who am I in this world? And second of all, how do I get there? And that helping them see that they are a whole heck of a lot more than what they think they are and what they give themselves credit for, and that they are a lot more powerful and capable than what they think they are, and that they can actually be the vision of what they envision themselves to be. And so through our coaching and through the tapping, I help them to get rid of those thoughts that they tell themselves, the beliefs that they tell themselves, really helping them in their language. So being very clear about how they're communicating with themselves, getting rid of the, okay, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, to how can I find the resource? How can I make this possible? How can I be more than what I already am? And combining all of those tools, the EFT, the language, to really support them, to help them see for themselves that they are more than what they realize, and to get them to a place where they feel confident and secure inside themselves.
I love that. I love that so much. I love that, like, this is where you were at and this was healed within you, and now you're, helping others heal the same. I think that's huge. Yeah. I love that so much. So do you primarily work with women then, correct?
I do, but I don't turn anybody away.
Right.
So if there's a gentleman that wants,
there's plenty of men out there too that need to find their own voice. It's not like it's just women.
Sure do. And that's why I say, like, I don't really close my doors to anybody. So
I know plenty of men that, I think, of course, for the more masculine side of it, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to admit something like that. But I think, I think instead of from the, and I don't want to just say men, but more masculine energy is what we end up getting is just a lot of emotion or a lot of anger, when someone's unable to express themselves. Whereas, the more feminine energy kind of shuts down, gets really quiet, so they look different, but it happens in all spectrums.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me too, like, for whatever reason, I've just attracted more women into this work. Like, that's just what has shown up for me, in this last year. It's been all women. So by all means, like, I would love to invite the masculine into my work as well, and support that journey as well.
Yeah. And you've been doing some group tappings as well, correct? Online?
Yes. I have been doing, every Wednesday at 4:00. Hopefully that will still be happening at the
PST?
PST, yes. 4:00 Pacific time. It's basically open for anybody who wants to come in. Every week is a different topic, different theme. And sometimes there's a lot of people there. Sometimes there's one person there. So I've had many people who have had a free one-on-one session. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for them. And this is something that I'm building that's, just growing and evolving. And I know it will continue to grow and evolve more. I have discovered that I love the group setting. I am actually going to be working, speaking in front of a few groups coming up in the next couple months, doing some group tapping sessions. It's still, we're still in that building, that developing. I'm growing and learning every day. And so it's,
as we all are, regardless of where we're on the path.
And it's not going to end until we die.
So how do people find out about the group tappings? Where do they need to go?
So those, you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is I am Lynley Welte, and that's where I'm posting most things. You can also find me on Facebook as well. I will also have in the future, not so distant future, you can also find information on my website, which is lynleywelte.com. That's not currently up yet, but that's in the process of being built. So between those three places, you can figure out, what's happening and where I'm at.
Yes. And I highly recommend working with Lynley. She's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Helps me be nicer to my body. What person doesn't need that, right?
For sure.
Okay, so before we jump into the lightning round, you have a special offer for our listeners. So please share.
Yes. So I am offering the Tapping Breakthrough Intensive. And this is 4 sessions with me. It'll be about 1 month period worth of tapping, where we'll just take a deep dive into a subject, whatever subject it is that you want to choose. We'll jump into it and just do some intensive tapping work around it. And I normally charge $891 for this. And anybody who is tuning into the podcast or watching this video today will get a 20% discount off of that price. So how would they go about that?
They would make sure when they contact you that they say, I heard you on the Soul Driven podcast.
Thank you, Anna, for that extra little guidance.
I got you covered on the marketing.
I'm not used to making my offers out like this. So thank you for this opportunity for me to be humble and
not a problem.
State that. So yeah, 20% off on the Tapping Breakthrough Intensive. Just let me know who you are, where you heard about it, mention this podcast, and I'll be sure to get that offer for you.
Sweet. All right, lady, you ready for the lightning round?
I don't think I have a choice right now.
Okay, number 1. What is the one habit that you can't live without?
Oh gosh. Oh geez. One habit I can't live without. Well, it's not a habit yet, but it's becoming a habit, and I'm really happy about this. So that's my rebounder. I love my rebounder. I know this might be weird, but
so like exercise, movement.
Yeah. It's like I live in a shoebox right now, and so I don't have a lot of place to move. But that is like my saving grace of like, I need to move. I'm going to go bounce. It's a new thing in my life, but I'm going to say that it's a necessary thing. Habits.
I'm with you on the exercise. Yeah. I have to move my body.
Anna told me that I need to move this year. I was not a big mover, and she's been helping me in some further deep exploration work on myself, and being a manifesting generator, I've learned that I need to move my body more. So
yes. So crucial for us.
So instrumental in my existence.
Helps us be nicer to ourselves and the world.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, what does spirituality mean for you?
Oh gosh. For me, honestly, spirituality is my foundation. Like I shared earlier, it's this world is what this world is, but spirituality is a foundation and my core of who and what I am in my existence in this world. And so it's understanding who I am in relation to source. So that source, God, universe, Buddha, Allah, whatever name you want to give it, maybe that's even Divine Mother. It's having, in short, spirituality is having a relationship with that higher power. That's what I would say.
Love it. Okay. Number 3, what is your advice to anyone who's looking to find purpose?
Don't look too hard, because it's within you. Your purpose is that your purpose. I think everybody knows it. I don't think that people accept it. So what I would say is listen, take some time being quiet with yourself. Take some time to maybe journal, meditate, go outside with yourself without all the noise, and really just be with that and see what comes. And you might be surprised what you discover. All
right. And last but not least, which you kind of already answered, where can people connect with you online? I guess we already talked about your Instagram and your website.
Yep. A little bit of Facebook.
Also, Clubhouse.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So I've recently discovered Clubhouse, and me being the introvert that I am, I love it. Not that those two are related. But yeah, love. I am hosting every Monday mornings with my sister, my beloved sister. We host a gratitude room. That's currently right now, it's every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Possibility we're still dating the time. We're dating the time as in we're developing a relationship with that time. And then I'm also hosting an EFT room with another EFT practitioner And we are also playing around with that time, but that's an opportunity for us to tap. It's another opportunity to get some free tapping, see what it's like, come in there with something you want to tap with, and see how it can help you and serve you.
That's so cool.
We should have
So
done some tapping today. I didn't even think about it.
yeah, like before, then maybe we would have not had issues when we first started recording.
I almost mentioned it, but I was like, no.
So what is your handle on Clubhouse?
Lynley Welte.
Okay. All right, Miss Lynley. Well, it has been such a pleasure to have you.
It has. Thank you. It's been an absolute joy. It wasn't as scary as I thought it would be.
No, I knew it would be good.
I don't think anything is when you have on air around.
It's very kind of you. Such sister.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thanks so much for joining us for today's interview. If you were inspired, please come hang out on social media at Soul Driven Podcast. Find us on iTunes, rate and subscribe, and make sure that you sign up for the email list to receive podcast updates, free tools, and meditations. And don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next week.